Today we're going to be talking about what is love. When I used to run groups all the time, this was one of the key things that everybody used to want to hear and want to talk about, especially when there is some kind of turmoil going on in their relationship, whether it was an affair, there's someone within the relationship that had some kind of addictive behavior, whether it was sex, drugs, gambling, any type of addictive behavior that was going on, whether it was one or both of them. And so one of the things that I always used to talk about is, well, what the hell is the definition of love anyway? Because, in our society, we have this skewed version of what love is. You go to these movies and the first thing you see about love is these two people running towards each other with this passionate love towards each other, and it's always passionate and this whirlwind of emotions and feelings where you always want to be around each other. You never want to see each other go, and lots of sex and all kinds of craziness. Well, that's not the true definition of love. In fact, it's the exact opposite of that. And so one of the things we want to figure out is what's the true definition of love. And so one of the things that we want to define is what is love. So the Webster's dictionary version of love. So if we have to define it, and so Webster's view of what love is it's a strong affection towards something or someone, and there's an attachment to that thing or to someone, and there's some kind of admiration, or you're admiring that object or that thing, whatever that is. And so that is what the Webster's view of what love is. And so if you start to go on to read of what is all the philosophers, psychologists of today, and even in the past, they all decided, well, what is love anyway? Because that's the Webster's view. So what is the American Psychological Association view is? What's the philosopher's view of what love is? And so it's interesting because they have come up with their own view, and their view is not this. It's not any of this, in fact. So let's just get rid of that crap right there. So all these philosophers and the American Psychological Association and all the psychologists, they've done tons and tons of studies, and they have kind of come up with an agreed view of what love is. And their view of what love is that it's all biochemical. So sorry to pop your guys' bubble, but love is chemistry. And so people end up getting together based off of chemistry. And what happens is that there's a neurochemistry thing going on in our brain. And we have this great thing called dopamine in our brain, which is like a feel-good chemical in our brain. So if we have to put it in simplistic terms, me and my simple terms, right? But hey, mental health, we're people, and I like things to keep it simple. And what better way to talk about love by keeping it simple too? And so dopamine is a bioneurochemical in our brain. And when you find two people, what happens is that this neurochemistry kind of thing happens. And dopamine, which is a feel-good chemical in our brain, gets produced. And what occurs is that there's a biochemical reaction in your brain. And this feel-good chemical called dopamine starts up, and it elicits the motivation and reward system in the brain. And it's the same area, wouldn't you know, that addictive behavior begins. So all of a sudden, that one thing that's in a movie where I just can't get enough. I just can't get enough. That same thing where you just kind of get enough of your addictive behavior sorry, the same thing that happens in the addictive behavior part of the brain, where you kind of get enough of the substance or the addictive behavior thing, whether it's sex, drugs, gambling, that same thing happens because it's lighting the same part of that brain. And so the same thing that happens, it's just lighting the same part of the brain, and you cannot get enough of that person because that part of the brain is being lit up. And so all of a sudden you can't get enough of that person. You want to keep seeing that person. You want to be around the person all the time. Well, yeah, because that part of the brain is occurring, that lighting that part up. And so what occurs is that we want to spend more and more time with that person, every waking hour. And what happens is that once passionate love, 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 the passion or that passionate love that you hear so much about, we want to reproduce with that person, right? Because if we think we're animals and we're humanistic, we're humans, and we want to reproduce because that's what we do, right? I mean, that's part of our put on this earth, is we want to reproduce our people. And so our bodies is saying, let's produce, come on. And so this passionate love occurs and sparks happen, yay. And we want to spend all our waking time with that person. And as time progresses, as with anything in life, things change, right? And so after a while, you start thinking, wow, I don't know about this person. I'm kind of getting over it. And so this passionate love, well, the sparks starts to fade. And all of a sudden, it turns into a different kind of love. Who knew, right? And it starts to turn into a companionate. Is there even such a word? Yes, there is. A companionate type of love. So now that love returns into a companionate type of love, and the once passionate love fades, and you turn into like this love where it's more of a companion type of love. And so the biochemistry or the dopamine starts to plummet, and it kind of levels out. And all of a sudden, that passionate love is gone, and it becomes more of a companion kind of love. And that's the kind of thing that you see with people who've been around and been married for 15, 20 years kind of thing. So the ones that when you talk to the elders, and they're saying, yeah, I can finish their sentences. I know exactly what they're thinking. And the same goes vice versa with the other person. And that's what you want to hope for, because that relationship then lasts. What I used to hear in groups all the time, unfortunately, is that people say, well, what happened? How that kind of gets boring. Well, if you read all the studies, and what people say and the psychologists talk about all the time, is that you want to have spikes in this companionate love, right? So yeah, here is the law of the companionate part where it gets kind of boring, and then you want to have a spike where it's like, oh, passionate, yay, and then back down to the norm where it's boring again, and then companionate, and then spike again, passionate, yay, we found the spark again, and then back down to norm again. And that's what makes for a lasting relationship. That's what the norm is. Now, would that make money in movies? Probably not. And so you probably won't see that in those kinds of movies, because that would make for a boring movie. And so they won't show that. But that's what is for a long-term relationship. Now, that is what love really is. Sorry to burst your guys' bubble, but that is what love is in our society, usually. Normal healthy range of love. That's what long-term relationships should look like. Now, people that come in my practice, they have this skewed view and version of what love is, because a lot of times how much people do you know have healthy views of what love is? Not many, right? They come in, they have no idea what the hell freaking love is in the first place, and they're looking for something that is what you see on TV, and you're searching for what a storybook kind of love. And what happens is that they keep searching and searching, and they cannot find a great relationship because they're searching for something that really is non-existent, because you find that crap on movies. And when I do go through this and explain to them what love really is, it's almost like a burst in a bubble. You know, it's like the pink cloud has gone away and the unicorns and rainbows is gone, and you're like, wow, this is sucks. Thanks a lot for bursting my bubble of what love's supposed to look like. And so people come in and say, well, what is the likelihood then of love really lasting through addictive behaviors, through affairs, and all that great stuff? Well, that will be talked about in next week's blog, people. So I will see you next week. Until then, be well. If you had liked this blog, please make comments, share it with others. But until then, see you next week.
Then the rainstorm came over me, and I felt myself